Previously on Pop Cult Parent. What up, internet? Who you are, what you be, where you at, where you see. This is Pop Cult Parent, your favorite podcast on the interwebs. And we're talking about a serious subject matter today. We're talking about the X-Men. What X-Men? The X-Men that started in 1992. But before we get into it, I'm one of your hosts, Mark M.F. Jones, and I'm joined by...
This is Niels R.Y., a.k.a. Tell Cyclops I made him a convertible.
Good one. And this is Shannon, a.k.a. He's the Assassin. That was a deep one I had to find today. Bishop. So
yeah.
Yes.
He said it was such like assassin. So such hate in his voice.
Hey, we gotta talk about Bishop. Anyway, I am excited to bring back an amazing person, my role model, a nonprofit leader, a change maker, X-Men historian, and all in all, just an awesome guy, the one and only Dr. Michael Stevens. Welcome back to Pop Cult Parent.
Thank you for having me on. Hey again, thank you for having me. It's so good. I'm Mike, aka Magneto was right, and this is such a good time to be here. This is the best time to be here. I'm so hyped, man.
You knew if we were having anything X-Men related, we were gonna bring your tail back to Pop Cult Parent. So excited. And look, Pop Cult, we had like a last minute audible, like, hey, should we do an X-Men episode? Yeah, we should do an X-Men episode. I text Mike, and in a matter of hours, he was like, yes, I'm down. I'm ready. Send me the info and I'll be there. This man had no prep. He just showed up. It's like, yo, I am ready to talk about X-Men. And for that, I appreciate you, brother.
And in fact, he sent literature to all our houses of like how Magneto was right. He's like, you read this, read this before the podcast so we can talk.
Whole pamphlet.
yeah.
Excuse me, yo, brother. Can I talk to you about how Magneto was right today? Outside of Safeway, just handing out Magneto was right. So yeah, the reason why we're going to talk about X-Men, specifically the 90s series X-Men, is there's a lot going on in the world of Marvel. You know, in the Super Bowl, there was a Deadpool trailer, and there's been screenshots of Hugh Jackman in the traditional yellow and blue Wolverine uniform that looks like the one from the show. Disney released the trailer to X-Men 97, the sequel series to X-Men the Animated Series, and the internet just went nuts about it. So we're like, why not? This is a perfect time to talk about X-Men, the series, talk about what's happening, and maybe some thoughts about X-Men 97. So before we get into it, you know, always Nels got that dope history. Yo, let's go, Nels. What do you got?
Y'all are going to have to tell me to stop because I'm about to go in on the X-Men. Okay, so the X-Men animated series started in 1992/1993. Is kind of interesting. Like, they previewed us, y'all, and you may not remember because 92 was a minute ago, but they like previewed the X-Men a few times in 92, like Halloween and Thanksgiving. But then they actually kicked off the series in January 1993. X-Men lasted for 5 seasons and 76 episodes. While the show is to a degree supposed to be like an original story, for those of you who have read any X-Men comic books, you can tell that they mostly adopted Chris Claremont's run of Uncanny X-Men. We talking the Dark Phoenix saga, Days of Future Past, Genosha. There's just a whole bunch of stories that Chris Claremont wrote that have showed up in the X-Men. So for those of you who have only watched the X-Men, the animated series, and anytime anyone who is an X-Men head talks to you about X-Men and you can keep up, it is because they have adopted a lot of one of the best, if not the best run of X-Men through Chris Claremont. So just some of that for you to know. A bit about the launch of the show. So Fox Kids, I mean, we kind of all owe our childhood a little bit to Fox Kids. They specifically were looking for edgier cartoons to put out on Saturday morning. They had already done Batman the Animated Series, and they were looking for a way to like bring additional like like adult-ish cartoon shows, and they brought in the X-Men. And what's wild is, if y'all can just remember this, what is wild is, for Saturdays for years, we had a Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men cartoon all on the same day.
One network.
In one network, 30 minutes apart from each other for years. We're talking 3 of some of the greatest shows in general. Some of the best adaptations of superhero shows were all on the same network, all around the same time, every Saturday on one network. It is ridiculous. I just wanted to take a minute and just acknowledge the ridiculous that is. So
we didn't know what we had, man.
They had crossovers, Mike. You're right.
Yeah.
What a
They sure did.
What a time to be alive.
Man.
This episode of Pop Cult Parent is brought to you by Black Nerd Coffee. Black Nerd Coffee was started by Elliot and Annie, 2 HBCU grads who became obsessed with making the perfect cup of coffee you can enjoy black, no cream or sugar. In their journey to create the perfect cup of coffee, they wanted to learn as much as they could and share that knowledge with their family, friends, and community. That desire to learn more became a delicious obsession. Over the years, they have enjoyed trying, celebrating, and sharing coffees from around the world. They believe that taking the time to make the perfect cup of coffee is an intentional and therapeutic form of self-care. I have to say, without a doubt, this is the best cup of coffee I've ever had at home, and I've been obsessed with this brand ever since. Want to check out Black Nerd Coffee yourself? Head to blacknerdcoffee.com and use the discount code POP20 to receive 20% off of any 12-ounce single origin coffee. That's POP20, POP20, for 20% off any 12-ounce single origin coffee.
Another thing that is wild, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, I did a little bit of research on this, but I could not find for this to not be true. Did y'all know that X-Men, the animated series, is the first successful Marvel TV show? There have been other Marvel TV shows before this. Of course, we all remember Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. We remember like 2 different live action Spider-Man shows. There were some, I'm pretty sure, like there was the Incredible Hulk. So live action, there were some successful live action TV shows. But as far
what
as
does
like
successful mean? Like what is it?
Successful
Numbers?
means numbers. Number wise, it is considered the first successful Marvel TV show.
Wow.
It sounds baffling to me, but then you see the numbers. X-Men at a time had 23 million households watching it on a regular basis. 23 million. That's DBZ numbers, y'all.
What?
23 million people are watching.
So that's Game of Thrones numbers.
So on a regular basis, that's the average numbers they were pulling. You know what I'm saying? They had like entire rooms full of fan postcards talking about how much they loved X-Men.
Wow.
It was so popular that the money they made from X-Men funded the launch of Power Rangers. It gave Saban enough money to purchase the rights to do Power Rangers. That's how ridiculous X-Men was.
Stacks on stacks. Good Lord.
So
hold on. I'm sorry. So X-Men, the milk money profits from X-Men, the animated series, went to buy one of the biggest kid franchises of all time. Like that just blows my mind.
That is correct.
That is
correct. So Fox, again, look, y'all. I'm sorry. I got to talk about this. Fox at a time had Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, and Power Rangers. And that wasn't even all the best shows that they had. You know what I'm saying? They had Beast Wars. You know what I'm saying? So like
Transformers.
Dog.
You know what I'm saying? So
that executive, like that studio, like executive office must have been like the Wolf of Wall Street. It must have just been like caviar, champagne, tigers, just running around like, oh my goodness, 23 million?
And I will be quiet, but this is the last point I have to say. They started from scratch. They were competing with Disney. ABC had Tailspins, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, and the Gummy Bears. They looked at that and were like, I got something for you, and gave you the lineup that I just said. And they instantly took. Do you know how hard it is to beat Disney in anything?
But you know what?
Let alone cartoons? Come on.
You know
now.
what's so interesting? Like you named because I remember that lineup: the Tailspin, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck.
Goof Troop. I forgot about Goof Troop. Darkwing Duck.
Like,
thank you.
That what was done there is so interesting because nowadays people just want to copy it. They're like, oh, you got a Bluey? We need a Bluey. Oh, you got a Spider-Man? We need a Spider-Man. You got a Game of Thrones? We need a Game of Thrones. But they looked at that. They're like, okay, they have a solid hold on this demographic of children. So we gotta find our own. They're making hamburgers. We gotta make tacos. You know what I mean? And like, we gotta make the best tacos that ever existed. And like, I feel like that's not done in Hollywood anymore. Everyone just wants to copy whatever is popular and not find their own lane. So like that's nuts that they did that.
And if you remember back, so when X-Men the animated series came out in 1992, like I remember the big unveil was like the first 2 episodes were like the teaser, and you could go to Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was giving the VHSs out. And like at that time, like, you know, you like fast forward, you remember like if you wanted to go get like a toy, a Power Ranger toy, you can go to McDonald's. Ain't nobody else have it on like Pizza Hut used to have it. And to do like a big night, like you go to Pizza Hut, have a nice meal as a family, and then you get these VHSs and go to watch it. Like at that time, like it was in every single household. Like it was like a pop culture phenomenon, and literally like within a weekend.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, at that time of my life, as what, I don't know, let's say like 6-year-old young Mark, who would beg to go to Blockbuster, get 100% on a spelling test just to walk into a Blockbuster. If you as a franchise gave me a VHS, like, I am your loyal customer for life, dog.
With
like,
pizza.
With
Pizza Hut pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah.
We going to Pizza Hut only. All I want is Pizza Hut.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a moment, just go and Google. It was like classic art. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what got so many people just like hooked into X-Men all off. It was all off of going to Pizza Hut and then seeing this crazy artwork, and then you watch the VHS, you're done.
It's almost like tears of joy and nostalgia like welling up in me right now, just because I was like, it's so beautiful. It was like, and even just thinking that, I'm thinking of like Pizza Hut with their, you know, the book it thing where, you know,
Talk about it.
Read the books, get your free personal pan pizza. So not only were they doing that, but also here, come get your VHS of X-Men. It's like Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut knew what they were doing, man.
They did.
Like what? Between the VHS, Book It, and just to remind you all, Pizza Hut used to be a sit-down restaurant.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like you would go to Pizza Hut, it was family style. You would sit down, they have buffet, or they bring you a pizza and put it on the table with those red cups that made the water taste better.
Yep.
Made the soda taste better. Like Pizza Hut was a sit-down restaurant. And they just had this entire thing. They just got us. You know what I'm saying?
Pizza Hut used to be, oh, we just won our Little League game going to Pizza Hut. Oh, your auntie's in town? Pizza Hut. Oh, you got a good report card? Pizza Hut. I'm telling you, man, there's something that will always be dear in my heart. The green lights over the salad bar.
Yep.
Those red cups.
Yep.
The sit down Pac-Man in the corner and the cigarette vending machine.
Oh,
like,
yes.
It's just something just like will always live in my heart about that.
Talk about a good Friday night. That is a great Friday night you described right there.
Like that no more.
They don't
do it no more. Yeah. Anyways, so that's the history of X-Men the animated series.
Oh man.
So I was thinking, fellas, there's a lot. This is one of the greatest cartoons ever. This is arguably one of the greatest Saturday morning cartoons ever. There's a lot that we can talk about, and there's a lot that we're going to talk about, but I think it's fitting to start off our conversation with talking about the intro. And I will start off. There's a reason, y'all, we are talking about the intro. The intro does not have any words. All right. The start of X-Men does not have any words. It is a song by Ron Wasserman that goes, oh, look, I got too excited. It goes, And then it just goes from there. And the reason I want to start with the intro is because it's one of the greatest intros in television history, one of the greatest intros in cartoon history. When people talk about some of the greatest theme songs, they mention it. It may not be the top, but they mention X-Men, right?
It's in the convo.
It's in the conversation. And the last thing I will say is the animation at the time, you know what? It still holds up. I won't even say at the time.
Oh, yeah.
The animation for the intro is some of the most impressive animation I had ever seen. Definitely in the 90s. And they didn't have any words, but they explained the entire show to you. If you had never heard of X-Men, which a lot of us in 92, 93 did not know anything about X-Men, when we first saw the show and saw the intro, we instantly understood everything was going on. Okay, that guy has claws. That guy shoots lasers. Okay, They're the good guys. That's the bad guy. That's the leader. That's the other leader. He has magnetism powers. Say less. I'm all in.
Yeah.
Let's go.
She controls weather.
Yeah.
I guess she looks naked, but I guess that's a jumpsuit.
Can't touch anybody. When that came on, you knew it was a good day. It was a good day. Just like you said, it explained everything. And we've said this in some of our previous episodes as well. Shows just do not make great intros like that anymore. And like you said, the way that one just broke down everything, and even till now. So I'll say when we got Disney Plus, like a few years ago, one of the first things I did, I was, going through the catalog. Oh, what they got on here? And I saw they had the X-Men animated series on Disney Plus. I tell you, I watched the entire thing, all 5 seasons, and I am pretty sure for every single episode, you got the option to skip the intro. No, let that intro play. Let it play. Get me, get my palate cleansed and ready for it. Go. That is just how good it is. All, 75, 76 episodes, I listen to the intro for every single one. It's that good.
Yeah, like I love the intro for 2 reasons. One, like the song, like the melody is iconic. Like you could be anywhere. I'll just be like I'll be on the train. Somebody go, da-na-na-na. I'm like, what's happening? Where's the X-Men? You instantly go, you know what you're looking for. But then the other thing I really like about it is just like the actual opening scene. Like it is action. Like they jumping out of a plane. They fighting, they squatting up. And then like at the very end of the intro, it's like, okay, it's us versus them. And we going head at it. You know what you about to get every episode. Like
that build up, yeah, man. Like when the intro first starts, and it's like I love the way it opens. It's like you see that the letters. It's like the close up of the letters X-Men, and then like the jet flies, and you see like Rogue and Storm. You're like, yo, what is this? And then the title, like I remember me and my boy, we would act out this intro when it came on. Like when Wolverine was like Wolverine machine. Like,
yes, I used to do the same thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like Cyclops with his glasses in the sky. Like we would do that all the time. Man, yeah, this is one of the greatest, I'm gonna say, just TV show intros ever. And Nails, I think you said this about Power Rangers. Everyone sings this song and there's no words, but everyone like it's just something primal that it gets us. And yeah, man, it's a classic. It's a classic. I love it. Brings joy to me every time I hear it.
One thing I love about that intro is the last part when you see Professor X do the mind thing and Magneto go like this and they're standing off of each other. That was too good. We did not deserve that at that age. Like what? Like the epicness, like that should have been on HBO. Like, I don't know. That was wild that we got something of that quality.
When Cyclops is shooting all the Sentinels, it's like, and then Storm does a little, like her little like lightning bolts. I'm like, yo, these dudes are like, oh man, like that's what a theme song's supposed to do. Get you hyped for what you're about to see and get you in the mood, man. So funny enough, I wanted to share something with y'all. Did y'all know that apparently when Disney acquired this show and everything, that they almost had to take out the theme song?
No, why?
Wow.
So and like I just found this out this morning, dog. So I'm gonna share a link with y'all. There was a lawsuit that the X-Men theme song copied another TV show's theme song. This is a Hungarian show called Linda. It's from 1984, right? So I guess,
You're lying. You're lying.
No, I swear. It's a
I don't believe you.
It's a Hungarian show called Linda from 1984, and there was like a lawsuit about like, I guess Saban or whoever, they said they took this theme song. So I'm gonna share this with y'all, and you just tell me what you think, all right? Shout out to the podcast Double Toasted, because this is where I heard this morning. But what's y'all's reaction to hearing that and knowing the story about the lawsuit?
For me, I started thinking of so did you recently hear the thing where, or at least I just heard it where, so let's say the song Yeah, like it was supposed to have the Freak a Leak beat, whatever. So I'm sort of like, this is maybe Yeah to Freak a Leak. Whereas like I see there's some similarity, but I'm like, I don't know. I do see some similarity there, but I'm like, I don't know if it would be like lawsuit worthy.
There's a small part of it. I'm like, okay, I hear like the little, like I hear that piece, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's not worth ruining my childhood. But more importantly, I was watching the intro. I want to watch this show now.
I want to watch Linda. That was my immediate reaction. Linda looks dope.
Where can I see Linda? Where is Linda
like
streaming?
A Hungarian $6 million man, and I need to see more of it. But no, this is. Have y'all heard the story about Ray Parker Jr. and Ghostbusters and I Need a New Drug? This is the same thing. Like, so Ray Parker Jr. stole the theme for Ghostbusters from I Need a New Drug. Like, the song sounds exactly the same. Y'all watch it for another day. Whenever we do our Ghostbuster episode, I will go in on Ray Parker Jr. for another day. It's one of the few times a black person steals something from a white person when it comes to music. It almost never happens. One of the few times that it happened. Bro, they stole that song.
Hey, Shannon and Mike, I think y'all are trying to, protect your childhood. Like, I get it, but like that joint a little too similar. It's just a little.
It's not exactly Ice Baby to Under Pressure. Or,
yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. But it's different because it's dun 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 dun. Nah,
bro. If they went then, I would have had to.
Yeah.
The podcast would have been over. Like, no.
That I think that's the saving grace, right? They're probably in the courtroom playing this. They're like, look right there. They didn't go. Like if they stole that, it would have been a wrap. It's like give them their money, take it down. So I'm not sure where the court case landed, but apparently, we have X-Men theme song on Disney Plus, so it's for the better.
Look, I can tell you exactly what happened. Disney got stupid money. All right. Disney talked to whoever in Hungary and was like, what you want? Yeah. I got you. I'm Disney. You know what I'm saying? I can't have this TV show without this theme song. We done spent the first part of this podcast talking about the intro. They are going to pay all the money and have all the lawyers to make sure they got that theme song. But I have no doubt that's what happened.
And Nels, you know there was one person like, oh, do we really need this theme song? They'll come and watch it. And there was just one person who was like, no, you cannot have this show on this platform without that theme song. It will be the end of us.
Mm-hmm.
We will lose 25% of our Disney Plus subscription. We promised them X-Men. We need to get this theme song.
I mean, I'm trying to think of another equivalent. I feel like.
Oh, it's Pokemon. Like, it's the equivalent. Pokemon.
Yeah. Pokemon coming on.
You can't watch Pokemon without watching that theme song.
You know, it's not happening. It can't happen.
Yeah. So I mean, any song in the 90s, but yeah.
Yeah.
The beauty of the X-Men TV show, the beauty of X-Men as a franchise, and Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, but the beauty of the X-Men as a franchise, and one of the things that I'll talk about later is why there is nothing like X-Men, no matter like where you look at, especially when thinking about the big two between DC and Marvel, there's nothing like X-Men. The beauty of the X-Men is the roster of the X-Men team. There's been different iterations of the X-Men team. This roster is based off of brand new X-Men, Mike. Like, are they called brand new X-Men? Not the first team was like X-Men, but the second team, it's like brand new X-Men. That's when they went international. They have parts of that. And then, of course, when you look at the 90s run, right before the late 80s, 90s run, right before the TV show started, that's when Jubilee was introduced and Gambit and things of that sort. They took those new characters and Rogue and embedded them into this TV show.
Is that because I remember like I had a buddy who was into comics or something. He showed me a picture of the X-Men and it was like Beast, but he didn't have any fur. And I was like, where'd you get this bootleg? I thought it was like, oh, you went to Chinatown and got the bootleg. Because like I'm used to seeing it on Fox Kids, but it was like Beast didn't have no fur. Wolverine had like the brown and yellow, and I was just like, I was disgusted. I was like, ugh. Like the way Bishop says assassin, that's like how I felt inside. I was like, ugh, get this out of my face.
Mike, can I start and then feel free to jump in and correct me?
Yep.
The original team of the X-Men were all young, mostly American folks. That included Jean Grey, which she was known as Marvel Girl, Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, Angel. Like, I think that was everybody, right? Yeah.
Yep, it was
that was the original team. Some stuff went down. The team, like that run ended with, and the new run started with that team getting like stuck on a mutant island and they were all dying. Cyclops made it out and Professor X was like, bet I gotta recruit a team. And so he goes across the globe and recruits international mutants. He goes to Africa, gets Storm, goes to, I think, Canada and gets Wolverine, Russia to get my favorite X-Men, Colossus, like gets the brother from Irish, gets the guy from Asia that like leaves the team right afterwards.
Basically, it's basically the plot to Mighty Ducks 2, huh? Like,
yes, it is. It is. And they're led by Cyclops. They save the team. And then the rest of the X-Men are like, well, you got better people, so we're leaving. We're not going to be X-Men anymore, except for Beast. And so that team is essentially like, that's when X-Men got popular. And that's like the most well-known iteration. But the reason you don't see Colossus and Nightcrawler and some of the other folks on this one is because the team that were part of the X-Men around the time right before the show started was when they introduced Rogue and Gambit and some of the other folks like fell off. So while Colossus is one of the most popular X-Men, Nightcrawler is one of the most popular ones because around that time in the comic books, they had switched in with some new characters. That's why they weren't on the animated series. But Mike, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, once they brought on all the international players, the original 5 they did their own team for a minute, and that's when you got the comic book X Factor. So it started off with like the original X-Men, they became their own little thing. And then the X-Men kept adding more and more people. They added Jubilee, they added Rogue, they added Gambit. So like now you got this big group. And then when they brought the original 5 back, then they broke them. Like now you got like, that's when the X-Men roster was like, just everybody is there. They at one point they were bigger than the Avengers. So then they separated it out. And so then there were 2 teams. Cyclops led one team, and that was the X-Men Blue. And then Storm led a separate team, and it was the X-Men Gold. And so when the way that they did for the animated series, most of the people, now they put Storm over on this team as well. But like most of the people on the X-Men animated series, I think it was like the X-Men Blue. So like a lot of the people like Psylocke, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Banshee, a bunch of them in the series, like in the comic, they would have been on the X-Men Gold, but then in the series, they just kind of like sprinkled them in here and there. So like they just had so many people that that's how they kind of start to condense the roster down for this one.
Ain't nothing like X-Men, man. I'm telling you. Goodness gracious. I was thinking because the power of this show, of the franchise is in the characters, it'd be cool to just talk a little bit about some of the main characters in the show. I'll start off with Cyclops. And this is what I'll say about the X-Men animated TV show and Cyclops. I believe this is my hot take. Cyclops is one of the greatest leaders in comic book history, but the start of his downfall in media is the X-Men animated series. Because before this,
I agree, Nels.
Before this, when you just knew of Cyclops from the comic books, Cyclops was the man. Like, he was pound for pound, arguably as good of a strategist as Captain America. Like, the brother was like leading a superpower team that rivaled the Avengers. And then all of a sudden, we saw him every week get punked. And I mean punked by Wolverine. And our little child minds were like, why is this guy the leader? He is getting punked. And I mean punked. At one point in this show, Wolverine was caressing, and I think I've said this a few times on Pop Culture Parent. Wolverine was caressing a picture of Jean Grey, a picture that was ripped. It was a picture of her and Scott, and he had ripped it, caressing it with his shirt off and the door open, talking about how much he loved Jean, and they live in the same house. This man,
your wife, dog. Your wife.
I think my AKA this episode was when he made Scott's car, his nice car, a convertible. This man got punked week after week, and I swear to goodness, that was the downfall. Because then when we got to the movies, James Marsden got punked on a regular basis by Logan. And he's been punked. It took up until this new iteration of X-Men for Scott to finally get some of his cred back. But it has been decades here. He's been punked.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say about Cyclops.
No, I
turn
agree
it
with
to
you.
y'all.
Like, this show did not do Cyclops any favors, dog. He has like maybe one or two moments. I think in the first episode, he's the only one that like does damage to the Sentinels. But then like, and then the episode with Mr. Sinister was like, you want to mess with my friends? And he like, but he's got mad 1987 Leonardo energy. Like, guys, Professor's going to get angry at it. And everyone's like, yo, shut up, Cyclops. Shut the hell up.
Very Gen X. Very Gen X.
Wasn't there a couple of times he's like, Wolverine just like punched him in the stomach, and he just like did nothing.
Yes,
literally.
But yeah, I'm like, you can tell like from that, even if you hadn't read the comics, like you're saying, you can tell. Yeah, he's meant to be the leader, but like Wolverine becomes such a fan favorite and everything. It's like, well, who cares about this guy then?
And I remember as a kid really wanting to like Cyclops. I was like, yo, you got laser eyes? You got this dope leather jacket too? And you rocking the blue and yellow? But like, nah, dog, you're punked.
It was episode 2 when Wolverine, like, I made him a convertible. Like, how you're not getting back with him all throughout this, and then like Jean Grey's your girl, and then like Jean Grey starts to become like all the story is about her, and like everybody ends up like taking up so much space, but then Cyclops. The most space he ends up taking up is when his dad popped back into the scene.
Yeah,
his dad is like, "Your dad been out in space doing his thing, dog." Like that's what we talking about. Like he never grabs as much attention as everybody else around him.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the episode when they got married and like instead of going to the wedding, Wolverine goes to the danger room and like kills a bunch of like robots to look like Cyclops. I'm like, yo, and like,
you know what that did to my little child mind? I was like, yo, you live with them. You live with them.
Dog,
this is their wedding day.
Dog, not only did you not, and the greatest thing about it is he was still in like his tux. He like couldn't even go stand in the room. He's like, I gotta go kill a bunch of Cyclops robots. And what I love about that is because Cyclops obviously knows, yo, Logan's not here. Okay, well, we know what that is. But like the danger room, that's gotta be a database. It's like, oh, well, let's see what Logan did in here.
Yeah.
And you live with him.
Y'all
eat breakfast in the same room. Come on, bro.
Yo, and you know, I think Logan's the type of character if Cyclops like, hey, Logan, let's sit up outside. And they just went at it. And I think like, okay, that's it. Then we went at it. It's done, but like, no. And Cyclops would always be there in the corner and like, Jean, I just want to tell you. And she's like, Logan, I can't. And Cyclops just over there in the corner, just Mr. Oh, is it okay now? Or did you tell him? Like, come on, dog.
Can I ask y'all a question? Because there's either two things that happen. One, Cyclops does not give a damn, and he's just like, I do not care about Wolverine. Like, I am this secure about our relationship that Wolverine means nothing to me. Or two, which is what my child Niels thought of the latter, is like, I need him. He is the best he is at what he does, and what he does is not very nice, and I don't want the smoke. Like, I need him on the team, and I don't want the smoke. Flirt with my lady all you want. I don't know what Jean did to Wolverine. I don't know if they had some quality time at certain points before the series started, because that man is sprung, and this man has been alive for hundreds of years, and he has sprung on Jean. But anyways, what do y'all? I'm curious. What do y'all think that was?
My take is, I think Scott does not want to challenge Wolverine, and God forbid lose. And then that being the back of Jean's mind every day for the rest of their marriage, just like, I don't think he can live with that. So he's like, we got a nice Cold War balance, me and Logan right now. We'll just hate each other in silence, and we'll just live how we live.
True. Yeah, I think it's like he got the work hat on too much about this. It's like, yo, you forgetting, like, yo, like he is like, he got eyes on your girl. But like, he's like, okay, well, no, I think he's thinking about it only in work. Like, okay, I need to keep this thing together. I need to, he's not thinking about it like the way Logan was thinking about it. And like, clearly you're missing it, because that man, he wanted his wife.
Absolutely. And like saying that too, it's just like when you were saying that he's been alive for hundreds of years, Wolverine, I'm just like, you mean you went through World War II? Like there was somebody in World War II that you were like, this is this is who I'm getting with. There wasn't somebody in, I don't know, whatever came after that, like those things.
Vietnam.
Yeah,
Korean
Vietnam.
War. We saw the movie. You were in all the wars.
Yeah. And throughout all the wars, all these different countries, you're like, still, I want her. And by her, I want your girl. Like, not the single woman I met in Cambodia back in the day. I want your girl. So, no, I agree with that. I think maybe a little something happened, and Wolverine is stuck on it.
So I'm gonna give a little flack to Jean. Like, she never created any like solid boundaries. She was like, look, stop,
Bruh,
stop.
We were gonna talk about Jean.
Yeah. She never did that. She never did that.
Let's talk about Let's talk about Jean. Let's talk about Jean. I have things to say. Jean Grey is toxic as hell. All right. Jean Grey in this show is toxic as hell. She never set boundaries. All right. Now, maybe this is the thing in the 90s. Maybe we just realized the power of boundaries now in the 2020s, but I'll be damned. No, she could have ended that. If she was like, Wolverine, you have no chance. I want nothing to do with you. Scott is my husband and I love him, and this will never be a thing. If she said that, which she never did, I watched all 76 episodes. She ain't never said that. She wanted her cake and eat it too. Yep. She wanted that. Yep. You know what I'm saying? She had no desire to create boundaries with Logan. Because at one point, I swear to goodness, she was just like, Scott might die one day, and that's my man. That is my man. She set no boundaries. She toxic as hell. And guess what? Here's my other hot take. I think she liked being the Phoenix. I think the Dark Phoenix saga was just her letting loose because she's toxic as hell. I don't know how much the Phoenix Force chose or did all that stuff. I think that was her. Whatever. She is a problem. She is a nuisance. She needed to be off the team. She ain't never done right by nobody. And she was a punk for half the show. She would use her power. She should have been one of the strongest mutants. She used her powers, and I swear it only worked for 5 seconds. And then she was crying on the floor like, someone help me. Every episode, bruh.
Dude, look, if I was on the team and I was ever in a situation of like, all right, Cyclops, Wolverine, or like Cyclops, Storm, Beast, and Rogue, and like Mark and Jean, I'm like, damn. You know, like, because like I'm like, all right, Gene, all right, we gotta sneak in this place. Grab the guard's keys, grab the couple ounces keys off the desk. She'd be like, and I'm like, come on, Gene, this is all you can do.
Gene, you're an Omega level mutant. You're one of the goats. Why are you acting like this?
Close the windows, Gene. Can you close the windows?
Fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Look, I even locked them too. Locked them.
Damn, Gene passed out again. Like because they would always be like, "Hey, Gene, can you just locate? Don't even communicate. Can you just see where everyone else is in the building?" She's like, "I'll try." Did you like fall down? Like, yo, are you serious right now?
If we want to make a drinking game, all you gotta do, how many times Gene faint? Every time Gene faint, you gotta take a shot. Everybody's done.
Everybody drunk. Everybody getting drunk.
Literally. Like,
Oh man.
it
You
made her
know,
face.
you know, on every like football team, there was the one dude who like always got hurt, and it got to the point where like, oh God, here we go. Like I feel like that's what it was with Gene. People were like, come on, Gene. You can fly, you can do all this stuff, but like I would rather take Jubilee with me. I'm like, nah, at least she can flare some people.
Yeah.
Like we good.
Did you say solar flare?
Yeah, she can solar flare. So like, just
I can't see.
I can't see out of my eyes. That stings.
Better than what Gene did. Great.
And
that
Mike, can you
stings.
just color in Jean Grey in the comic books is a beast.
They write her like Jean Grey in the animated series. She stay in the house. She stay in the house and she watch the action. But in the comic book, Jean the one out there active. Jean like she throwing stuff around. She flying. She doing play-by-plays. She taking stuff apart like at the atomic level and all this. Like Jean the one you don't want to see coming. But in the comic book, like she stay in the house. The only person who Jubilee get more active than Jean Grey. And that's all I gotta say. And that's not a look.
When Jean Grey show up in the comic books, when Jean Grey shows up, the villains are like, damn, like, oh, we gotta take her out first because she's a monster.
Yeah.
And think of the Jean that we got in the cartoons.
You know, as y'all say that, a thought just came to mind. So as we get into, you know, the studio and this and that and like the movie world, do you think that's part of why? Do you think they're dealing with that problem? Because so let's say if they're saying, okay, we do these things where we know a lot of people, they know X-Men because of the cartoon. They don't know anything about the comics. So therefore, in their mind, this is what Jean is. But then we also are sort of dealing with the fan base of, okay, they've read the comics and they know what Jean could be. And that's why I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm also like, that's why I don't think we've really had a great movie version Jean either. And that's why it gets so weird because she, as strong as she is, obviously in the cartoon she's weak and stuff. But then, you know, she becomes like, as she's Phoenix and everything, basically almost the strongest thing in the universe. It's this weird thing where like, it just doesn't line up. It's like you either weak or you're the strongest thing, but you're just out of control.
Before the experts chime in, this is my theory on a media like TV movie level. I think it's because, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to shows, all TV shows and movies, it's like Jean and Scott are like one character. It's like Jean can't do nothing without worrying about Scott. Scott can't do nothing without worrying about Jean. And like that's pretty much all their character is. It's like I love Scott, I love Jean, and there's nothing else there. And I feel like maybe that's why we don't really get those like badass Jean moments in like the movies or in TV. That's just my theory.
Yeah, like to be fair, the movies don't do anybody justice. I feel like there's only probably 3 of them. They do Professor X justice.
Yep.
They'll do Magneto justice.
Yep.
They'll do Wolverine justice.
Yep. I say
Mike,
Mystique too, to a degree.
What about? And I don't know much about the character, but what about Nightcrawler in X2? That Nightcrawler scene, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just you the expert. If you said it didn't, I would have believed you, but I would have been heartbroken. But
Nah, they did Nightcrawler justice for sure. And later
that
on,
scene, they did him justice. Yeah.
Later on, they start to do Mystique.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. To my reaction to what you said, Mark, is Scott and Jean's relationship is a plot point in the comic books. Like it's the fact that like these are two of the most important and powerful mutants, and they are in relationship with each other. And it's like why Sinister is obsessed with them. They have children, and their children are some of the most important mutants in history. Like Scott's family is important in every way, shape, or form. Like there's just stuff that happens with them. Scott is low key the main character. You know what I'm saying? And Jean is low key one of, if not the strongest mutants out there. And so their dynamics is like, I mean, they're two of their original X-Men. You know what I'm saying? So like their story is like part of the story of X-Men. It just so happens that Wolverine has become the most popular X-Men, but like the stories have originated from Scott and Jean. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you, and I think that's part of it. I have no idea why they punked out Scott and why they've punked out Jean. I cannot tell you why that was the thought process for the 90s cartoon show. But you know what? That's what raised me. So that's gonna be in the back of my head all the time. We've talked about Wolverine a lot. I'm curious if there's any other things y'all want to say about Wolverine. The only thing I'll say is this: he has some of the best lines, if not the best lines in the show. This man he has a great quote every episode.
He is a psychopath. He is the 1987 Casey Jones. Like, I'm gonna turn him into shish kebab. It's like every line from this guy is a threat. Every single line for Wolverine is a threat in this show. It's like, I'm gonna cut him up, bub. It's like he is on something. But I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. No, definitely one of my favorites. And I'm like, he's earned the right to have that attitude because he's like the only one that can't be hurt, like for real, you know? I mean, until he rounds up against Magneto, who is like,
but I don't think they ever do that in the show. I don't think they ever addressed the metal skeleton. Am I wrong? I don't ever remember that. That's why I remember in the movie, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Wolverine would be useless against Magneto. But I don't ever remember seeing that in this show. Do y'all?
They did an episode where they went back to like the Weapon X program, and I think that was when they also introduced Alpha Flight. So like the Canadian version of like the Canadian superhero team. So it was light, but they didn't like go through it like no. And then when they did Lady Deathstrike, so the woman with the adamantium like big claws that she can't do, like that she cuts everything up. So they did touch on it like a couple of times. They didn't touch a lot on his healing factor, surprisingly. Like I think it only came up like
very subtly, very
some
subtly
drops here and there, but they don't really show it too much.
The thing, like I know what you're talking about, Mark, because right around this time there was a comic book issue where Magneto legit rips out Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, and so he's just a lump of meat with adamantium sticking out, and you can't put that on Saturday morning cartoon. So I don't think they were ever going to go that deep and emphasize that, because the comic books, they're like, oh yeah, we'll play with your imagination. We'll tell you what could really happen when it's Magneto versus Wolverine. So
yeah. The last thing I'll say about Wolverine, the only criticism I have in this show, my dude's civilian uniform is like, I don't know what, like that jacket with that yellow shirt and them brown boots. I'm like, yo, this man has one of the coolest outfits in comic book history. Y'all couldn't get him just like a black jacket, maybe like a t-shirt.
It really makes you wonder what they think about Canadians. Like legit. He's the meanest Canadian I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Ryan Reynolds, Alex Trebek, Logan. It's very different. I want to save a particular hero for last. So I'll just throw a few names out there, and if y'all have anything, feel free to share. That includes Rogue, Beast, and Gambit. Curious of what your thoughts are. I'll just say with Gambit real quick, the Raging Cajun. I think he introduced me to the world of folks from Louisiana and the entire Creole Cajun community. So that is my appreciation from Gambit. He is a scoundrel, but you love him. So, and Beast is great, and Rogue is awesome.
I think if they were looking for a way to get women into X-Men, girls into X-Men, Gambit was their way in. I feel like I remember a lot of like playground talk and hearing girls talk about Gambit. Like I think that was a lot of young ladies' first crush was Gambit, and then like dudes just like the cards, the fire cards, his little metal pole, like and his red eyes. They're like, yo, this dude is cool, and his power set. I remember I thought his power set was he could make cards turn like explode. And I was like, oh, that's it, just cards. But no, he can touch anything and make it like volatile. But I think he became a fan favorite too,
Absolutely.
and probably because of this show, man. And like I remember in the movies, everyone, where's Gambit? Like it was like the Poochie. Where's Poochie? They should be talking about Poochie. Like, and when Gambit's not on the screen, everyone should be like, where's Gambit? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sadly, we still haven't gotten the Solo movie, and like, but yeah, definitely a favorite. Yeah, all of that as we mentioned those. Yeah, Gambit definitely one of the favorites. Rogue, like so interesting because I'm like Rogue. I feel like is one of like these strongest, like just like literally strongest, can fly and all of that, and then has this love interest with Gambit and you know just like realistically the way she's drawn and everything, people be like, oh, like Rogue is like the most attractive but literally cannot touch a person. Like, you know, if she were to touch you, kiss you, something like that, you will die.
Yeah.
So,
I think besides Wolverine, Rogue is one of the most like her character design is so great. It just like catches your eye. Like she's in her Jamaican flag outfit and she's just like, you know, she's just like, you know, bright, you know, bright green and yellow, and then like the different hair color. And like Rogue was like low key one of my favorites till when I saw the X-Men movie, I was so upset. I was like, this ain't Rogue. Who is this? Who's this little crybaby who's like, I can't touch nobody. I'm going like, I'm like, who the hell is this? Like Rogue gets in there. So
Rogue's a tank.
yeah, right.
yeah.
I think she was low key a fan favorite too, man. Like the voice actor, it's hard to do that like Southern Belle and that sounds silly, but she nailed it. And like she was always down. She's like, all right, let's go get him, let's go jump in there. And like you said, she was like the heavy hitter, you know.
Yep. Yeah, I would say Beast was supposed to be the X-Men's version of like they're supposed to be like the X-Men's genius, right? Like they're like resident Iron Man and Reed Richards and all of that. And like that's probably that's part of why he's the big furry one he is now. And they talked a little bit about it, but they didn't go like super in depth. The moments he did that, it was really cool. And like, you know, he also can do some fighting as well. Something I wish I would have seen with this one. So in the comic books, Beast ends up taking a really dark turn. So he ends up in like a couple of different moments, like being an actual villain, and like the team has to handle him. But he big, very strong, and smarter than most of them. So like he ain't the easiest to handle of the bunch. So even though that doesn't show up in the animated series, it was why once, you know, I'm really in my fandom and stuff where I'm like, I keep my eye on Beast, and like that's the thing I keep wishing for with that character, because like when he takes off into that sort of thing, like he becomes the X-Men that actually goes off on the dark end, becomes like Dark Beast, if you will.
Mike, is in the comics, is Beast like, you know, with Batman with enough prep time, Beast is unstoppable? Is he that kind of character?
Nah, not really. Like they still can get him. Like what ends up the problem was like most of the time the folks are on the X-Men, like they don't realize how far down, how bad Beast has got until like it's like, oh, it's about to be like lights out for everybody because this stuff Beast did, and now they're trying to catch up to him. Like
it's like Lex Luthor. Imagine if Lex Luthor was a mutant.
Okay.
Like that level genius and thoughtfulness and like strategy and planning, but like in a diabolical way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just so happens he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But just imagine if he was a bad guy. Like, yeah.
Problems for everybody.
Mike, you hit it spot on. Beast is a lot more complicated of a character than we get in the animated show. Granted, I love Beast in the animated show. Like he's the soul, honestly, of the team. I would just say, like, if you want to hear some crazy stuff with the Beast, like, just keep reading X-Men comics. You'll get every version of Beast you want. Like, at one point, Beast was a part of the Illuminati. Like Professor X was gone and Beast was the mutant representative on the Illuminati. And like there's like even like this last iteration of Krakoa and the mutant nation, like Beast is a problem. Like he's a genius, and so they welcome him and they put him to use. But like they all acknowledge that this man needs help. Like he is diabolical, and he needs to focus on something, because if he doesn't, it's a problem for everybody. The man is too smart. You know what I'm saying? Like he banged with Reed Richards. You know what I'm saying? He like can have an actual conversation with Reed Richards.
You up there.
He's up there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Hey, I just want to address two things before we leave characters, especially because something I want to ask the experts.
I just want to throw in a mention Morph.
Marv!
Because I feel like yours gonna take the cake, but Morph risked his life for the one X-Man that couldn't die anyway, and I feel like they just never really. I don't know. He never fully got back to, I feel like being fully utilized. Yeah. And
PTSD.
Yeah. And so I like that one always got me, because I'm like I like Morph, and
he needs some sleep, them circles around his eyes.
Yeah.
Morph was
He ain't
living a
never
rough
really
life. Dog.
snap back after that.
Yeah.
After being coming back to life and hanging with Sinister, it was some rough times.
It is
Yeah. I saw some stuff, man.
Morph need to call better help or something, man. He got to talk to somebody.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But sorry, just wanted to mention him. Go ahead. I feel like I knew where you going.
Yeah, all right. So we're going to talk about Storm. Storm is one of my favorite superheroes all time. I'm just going to list Storm's accomplishments. But before I say that, I will say this. Storm is, if not the greatest she is the greatest black superhero in my opinion. Her only competition is her husband. Like Storm to me is the greatest black superhero. At the time of us watching this show, like I think the only person we may have seen was Black Lightning from Super Friends as a black superhero. It wasn't that many of them. And so one of the first ones we had was Storm. And Storm was the lieutenant of the X-Men. Like she was right behind Scott. And if you remember the show, anytime Scott needed to think through a strategy, he was kind of talking to Professor X, but most of the time he was talking to Storm. Like Storm was like his thought partner on figuring everything else out. Mike already shared that Storm was the leader on the other team. Storm also was like, I'm pretty sure the headmistress when Professor X was out, like she was actually in charge of the school. She was the leader of the Warlocks. She was considered a goddess in Africa. Like there are people that worship Storm. And she's like, I think her people are from Harlem. She's like half American, half African. And so she can hang out in Harlem, but she was worshipped on the continent. So I have to, like, she is one of the coolest characters ever. She's one of the best leaders ever. And she's one of the best black superheroes, if not the best black superheroes ever. And I think she did us proud. And it's because of this show, they didn't like stereotype her. They could have done some crappy stuff to Storm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like this,
especially in the early 90s.
In the early 90s,
it could have left real bad.
Terrible stuff with Storm. Horrible. But they made her fashionable. They made her stylish. They made her cool. And they made her a sound and legit whole character. And she had episodes where she was the lead and the focus. And they were some of the best episodes out there. So I say all that to say, I love Storm. And part of it is because of this show.
I'm going to add just two things. One from the comic book and then one from the show. So in the comic book, there was a point where she lost her mutant powers. And when she lost her mutant powers, she went through this whole little journey. She challenged Cyclops for leadership of the X-Men. She had to fight Cyclops hand to hand. She had no powers and he had his mutant powers. And she beat Cyclops hands down, just with hands. That was in the comic books, like she's like certified, not just like her powers is awesome, but like Storm got hands, and like that is like written from the earliest game, and knives everywhere,
everywhere.
My type of person. But then in the animated series, like
I heard that, Mike.
What are my favorite parts about there was a scene where the Juggernaut came onto the scene, right? So they all trying to fight the Juggernaut, and they all know, like, yo, nothing we do stops him. Storm drops a building on this man. Like when you think about like feats of power in this show, like Gene fainting every 10 minutes, Wolverine gonna
Get him,
pull
Gene.
out, scratch you, like Cyclops gonna blast you with his eyes. Storm lifts an entire building and drops it on somebody. Like you don't like nobody else on this team is doing anything like that. Like granted, he still got up later on, but like just in terms of like street cred, like Storm, like the high mark.
I remember rooting for Storm a lot as a kid because like she was a black superhero. And I was like, oh yeah, Storm's so cool, man. She's doing this, blah blah. And I think even her design was cool. Her little like kind of double cape arm thing, as a young boy, I could appreciate the skin tight white suit. You know what I'm saying? So I can really appreciate that. But by one thing, I thought Storm was so cool, but just something about her Shakespearean spoken word to conjure up her powers. I'm just like, does it need to be like that? Do you need the power of wind and fire? Because like, can you just like
wind bestow on me your turbines?
The ancestors,
I love the gravitas though. I loved it. I think there was one episode Rogue was like, enough with the theatrics.
Just do it. Just
do it.
Just do it.
Storm's got like a whole thing she's like this whole routine to get it.
Can you imagine how intimidating that is? This sister starts flying in the air. Her eyes turn white. She lifts her hands to the sky and starts saying those bars. Bruh, that's intimidation. All of that is intimidation. She's trying to scare you before she actually gets to you.
Yo, she dropped bars on you before she zaps you or just sweeps you off your feet. You gotta respect the gangster. You got to.
And what's funny, the rest, you said Rogue said something, but I'm like, the rest of the team, they were probably thinking like, bruh, like, will she stop talking? But they ain't gonna say that. And they're like, well, you tell her. No.
Yeah, you tell her.
I ain't gonna tell her.
I ain't gonna say it.
It's real because Wolverine never said anything to Storm.
Yo, he never had nothing to say about Storm. Like, everyone else just get out of my way.
Everybody on the show. He has never said a word to Storm.
And like Storm, she never even like raised her voice. She's like, Logan, calm yourself. Like an auntie, like Aunt Viv. She's like, calm yourself, Logan. Sit down. He's like,
he started it. Yeah,
he started it. Yeah. Will you tell him to leave me alone?
All right, y'all. Any other characters you want to talk about before we talk about your favorite moments of the show? Yeah. Even though we said a few of them.
I just want to say two things about characters in general real quick. So one, I'm going to talk about Jubilee, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to ask y'all because I remember not really digging Jubilee as a kid because like, and I said this before on the show, as a kid, I didn't like the characters that were made for kids. So like, oh, well, let's get this kid character. And that's what Jubilee felt like to me. If she felt like she was created by committee and it's like, it's the 90s. What are 90s kids into? And let's make a 90s kid of X-Men. And so it's just like, it just never really worked for me. Is she cooler in the comics? Was she a character before this show? Like,
I don't remember her. Like, she didn't pop up much in the comics prior. I always looked at her like she's a stand-in to me. So
for Kitty Pryde.
Yeah. So Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat, like her mutant power, like she could like phase through stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you think about that in terms of like this, how they were doing the animated series, that is nowhere near as exciting as like somebody who can do fireworks out their hand. So I feel like they swapped. It was a stand-in more or less.
And Kitty Pryde played like a big role in the comic books. Like some of your like most well-known X-Men comic books, Kitty Pryde plays a role in them. So like she's a prominent character, and of course she gets with Colossus later on. But like she's a big deal. So I think when you talk about like an X-Men story, you have someone like Kitty Pryde. I don't know why they went with Jubilee, probably for diversity reasons, and I can respect it. I also look, y'all, I appreciate the Bret Hart glasses. I like it don't take much for me. Like you got Bret Hart glasses, I'm gonna be a fan.
I think the design was nice. Yeah, and but like even the powers, it's like, yo, you have fireworks. You can make fireworks appear, and it's just But I think the first episode they clearly wanted her to be the POV character. They wanted her to be
Yep.
the audience surrogate. I think she's the focus of the first two episodes.
Yep.
But they were like, oh man, people really like this Wolverine guy.
Yep.
So they ran with that. But yeah, I just like she just like in this show, I don't know, I'm sure in the X-Men 97, she's probably gonna be more fleshed out, but like
I doubt it.
she
Wait for
feels
her.
I doubt
like
it.
she was created by committee in this series. It was so yeah.
I almost forgot. So like, I think we talked about this before. I think y'all mentioned it before in like the previous iteration of, but this is not the first animated series of X-Men. So the first one was Pride of the X-Men. So in that one, Kitty Pryde was the POV character, and it never got greenlit past the pilot. So I think they probably like tried to, okay, well, they got a second chance, if you will. So instead of this time, they kept all the same characters, but like Kitty Pryde is noticeably absent, and now Jubilee is the mix, and like they make Jubilee like play up the '90s kid sort of theme a little bit more.
Did they call it Pride of the X-Men because Kitty Pryde was the main character?
Yeah, they spell Pride.
Wow.
Pride instead of like normal Pride.
Blew my mind. I did not know that. That
And-
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The last thing, oh my bad, Mike, were you about to say something?
Nah.
The last thing I want to bring up before we leave characters is, I guess, how forward thinking X-Men is as a concept, right? And I'm really interested in the climate that we live in and the toxic fandom that we live in. I'm really interested to see where the audience, how do they react to this show? Because, we hear it all the time, like, oh man, you guys went woke. Oh, they made a female character the lead because blah, blah, blah. And when you look at this show back in the 90s, and we had this discussion all the time, like a lot of sci-fi back in the day is very progressive. Like a lot of sci-fi from back in the day, if it was coming out now, people are like, oh, it's woke. But it's like, nah, this is what y'all fell in love with. You just have a word to call it now, like to attack it with. And I was looking at this show and I'm like, man, all the heavy hitters are women. All the heavy hitters are women.
Except for Jubilee.
Jean's supposed to be a heavy hitter. And like in theory, Jean's supposed to be a heavy hitter. Storm, Rogue, they're all women. And it's like, and it's not like there's not like attention drawn to it. It's just like, yo, we're the X-Men. These are the X-Men. And all the other characters know, like, yeah, Rogue will crush you. Storm will crush you. Jean should crush you, but she'll probably faint. And it's just like, I wondered, like, what do y'all think? Like, do you think it's going to be received well? Do you think people are going to like, because X-Men has always been an allegory for all these things, sexism, racism, homosexuality. And it's like, I'm really interested to see how this all pans out when we get the new series.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're already hearing the stuff now because like you're saying, people have been like, oh, they went woke. Like, I've already been seeing comments and different things, like even based on the trailer and stuff for X-Men 97 and stuff, where people are like, oh, they're going woke because of, I think it was like a woman character or something like that. So I think that obviously that portion is still going to exist because then I'm like, they sound dumb because I'm like, they were literally made after, like what you mentioned, but specifically, I think even thinking like the civil rights movement, like, this is Malcolm X and this is Martin Luther King Jr. Like, in terms of that. And then it's symbolizing that. I think you're still going to have those people that are going to be like, oh, they went woke and this is this problem. But I don't think it's going to hurt them at all because I think most people, if you love X-Men and stuff, you're going to love it. You're going to watch it. And then if you love X-Men and then on top of that, you are someone who's, say, social justice oriented, you're probably going to love it even more. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt them too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think just how big the ensemble is for X-Men, like also it gives everybody a chance to see themselves in people, right? So like Black women can see themselves in Storm. If you were a straight white man and you feel like the world is centered around straight white men, you got Wolverine, you got Gambit, and you got Cyclops to choose from. Like if you're of Asian descent, like you have characters that you have. So I think like one of the first things, like just because of the diversity of the actual group, like you can typically see yourself in one of the characters. But then I think the other piece is like the X-Men were written and kind of like it evolved into a thing where like it's very different than like the Avengers, where it's like it is steeped in like being the other, and like it attracts people who feel like they're marginalized in some form or fashion. And even when the movies are bad, but even when the movies were bad, like people want like you want to go see it because like, oh wait, I feel like a mutant at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And like that fan base is always going to follow them. I think that fan base is solid enough to still weather through like that the current like backlash that people are getting. I think it's going to translate well for this series, and I'm hoping that it sets up like it sets up Disney to see like it's why it's worth it to like invest more time and space in their future live actions to like that universe.
Yeah, the story of the mutants is the story of the oppressed. Like it always has been, it always will be. Well, I hope it always will be. But like it is always about those who have been considered the others, like Mike said. And that is part of like why the X-Men TV show was so good, is because it touched upon like every single type of oppressed group in some way, shape, or form. Not all of them in the spectrum of all the folks who've been oppressed, but there was representation in every way, shape, or form. And you can see yourself in the X-Men. You can see yourself in the mutants. And that was the beauty of it. I'm concerned because there is an attack on showing diversity and showing representation in the media. But you know what my hope is? Not only is there a wide ensemble of characters, but the show is based in the 90s. And everybody loves the 90s. So my hope is like for those who are on attack for anything that is seen progressive, they'll be like, but you know what? They got what's the cross colors? Yeah. I can't hate cross colors. You know what I'm saying? Biker shorts.
I'm nervous for the X-Men 2016. we'll see how that one turns out.
Yeah.
Mutants will not replace us. Walking down with their tiki torch.
Look, Scott and Storm gonna have a really deep conversation.
Where were you on January 6th?
Yeah.
Okay, can we say this right now? What X-Men are at January 6th?
Look, TV show or comic book? Because those are two very different answers.
You guys are the experts. You tell me who's at the Capitol at January 6th as an X-Men.
There's one of them. There's got to be one.
Yeah.
There's got to be one.
Look, I'm gonna say this: if he's not alive, if Professor X isn't alive, Scott's gonna be there.
Nah, bro. Scott, comic book Scott is about that life. You know what I'm saying? Like comic book Scott is about that life. He wouldn't stand it. Now, cartoon Scott Summers, him, his brother, and his daddy might all be there.
Now, look, I might have some questions. I might worry about Rogue.
Really?
Yep. Yo, Rogue feels like she's been wronged. You know what I'm saying? And she's Southern, and she's felt like she's been wronged her whole life. She might be looking for answers in the wrong places.
I worry about Rogue and Beast.
Rogue and Beast?
Beast.
Oh, no.
That's the answer. Beast.
They're the ones you gotta watch.
Yeah.
Mike is right.
Oh,
Beast is the answer.
Beast.
Yeah, no, Beast.
Oh, man.
Beast. Hey, you know what? Logan might be there too. I'm not saying he's supportive of the whole thing, but Logan is down for some anarchy.
Logan don't vote. Logan don't vote, dog.
He don't vote, but he's down for some anarchy. He's down. He'll want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
He ain't scared. He ain't scared of nobody. Sabretooth would absolutely be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's definitely there.
I was thinking maybe Morph again, thinking of him just because Morph, he just ain't been right.
He
gonna claim like insanity.
They
or
might
something.
get him.
Yeah, but I feel like Morph would be there, and if he's still reeling out after that Mr. Sinister stuff, he there wearing the Viking hat with the horns and everything.
Oh man,
that's more
Poor
just
Morph.
out there.
Poor Morph, man.
Meanwhile, the X-Men just watching him on TV like, dang.
Man, Morph needs help.
We ain't done
Yeah.
enough.
Morph need help.
Yeah.
Morph
like-
really need help.
And it's like, we know it's you, Morph, because you just changed you just shape shifted like twice.
I just see Morph becoming like the Rick James and the Charlie Murphy stories, just like always constantly bugging the X-Men. Just F your couch, Professor. Like he's like, kicking Professor X's wheelchair. Like man, Morph need help. We just did help him.
All right, y'all. So, favorite moments of the TV show. I'll start. I have a lot of favorite moments, so I'm only going to name one. At one point, I believe it was the beginning of the season 3, the 3rd season, they kicked it off with an hour premiere on primetime TV.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all remember the episode, it was the premiere of Lady Deathstrike, and I think this was the start of the Shi'ar Empire run, where they had the Shi'ar like ship, and there was like this ghost mutant electric thing that could only be hurt by adamantium claws. That was one of my favorite moments in TV history. I remember watching it 8:00 at night, and that was the first time my mom watched X-Men. And my mom immediately did not want me to watch X-Men anymore. She was like, I cannot believe that they are allowing children to watch this show. Because y'all may not remember, but Lady Deathstrike and Wolverine, they were fighting to the death. It was serious. There was some pain behind those claw scratches to each other. And my mom was like, I don't know about this one. She really liked Spider-Man after that. She was like, this is your lane. I think I talked about this on the Spider-Man episode. She's like, this is your lane. Like, stay here. X-Men, there's a lot of stuff going on over there. But by far, one of my favorite, like, it was so good. It was one of my favorite episodes and favorite moments in watching this show. What about y'all?
I'll say 2 of mine real quick. This was just sort of a funny one. Like when I was looking back, I was like, he was wilding. But so Bishop, when we get into some of that Days of Future Past type stuff, but Bishop, whenever he came back, and I remember he, like his thing, for the future, like he did that. But I remember he did that, and he commenced to shooting like every X-Men with his little
on
laser
sight.
on sight. I was like, I had never seen that done. And he's like, for the future. And it's like, he shot Gambit, Cyclops, Rogue. I was like, bruh, chill. So, but that was just like a wild point.
Save the future.
Yeah, say that. And then another one really quick was going into the Phoenix Saga. I think this was the first time maybe I've seen a crossover to this extent, or at least to this level. But there was an episode, I think it was like in season 3, part of the Phoenix Saga, when it's like the whole world is just like falling apart and all of this stuff happening. They show like you see Spider-Man, he like shoots his web, he saves this like bench was going to hit a woman or whatever. He like saves this woman. Then War Machine flies through and saves somebody. They've got, I don't remember the other heroes, but like someone in like Fiji and like all of this stuff, all these different heroes, some of which they maybe had a little bit in the episode and some of which you just never even seen before. But it really expanded that whole thing of, outside of just the X-Men and basically the people that are on Magneto's team, there are mutants really all around the world. And they're not just being like, we just sit around until the X-Men involves. They're like, no, you don't see us, but we're constantly saving people, doing this and that. So that was just like, to me, one of my favorite episodes. It really expanded that whole universe or world, I guess.
So for me, it was in the last season. They had it was a 2 episodes called the Phalanx thing. Okay, so
Yeah, how do you pronounce it? Phalanx?
Phalanx?
Whatever. I know exactly what you're talking about though. With Warlock.
Yeah. So it's almost like the symbiote from Venom, but it's like a techno symbiote, and like it's taking over everybody across the world and stuff, and just like it's coming to get everybody. And the reason that one was my favorite, so my favorite, surprise, my favorite X-Men, because I include him in X-Men, is Magneto. And so any episode where Magneto like gets busy, I'm always a fan. And like with this episode, like so by this time in season 5, Magneto is done fighting. He like, I don't want nothing to do with none of y'all. Y'all leave me out of this. They gotta drag this man out. He the only person in the world who can like help because like he get like this, he got the magnetism and all this stuff going. And I don't know, I like that. There was something about that where it was like, yo, y'all gotta drag Magneto out. But when Magneto come back, like everybody know who he is. And it just always was like, he's coming to save the day. Y'all know he's gonna be around. Y'all know he's gonna be around. The baddest man coming to do it again.
Can I just say, we didn't talk about Magneto too much in this episode, but like the one thing that translate in almost every medium is Magneto being a badass. Like you will never see Magneto not be a badass in any single iteration of Magneto ever. He shows up and you're like, it don't matter if he's old, it don't matter if he's young, it don't matter if he's thin, it don't matter if he's swole. Magneto's a badass. He shows up. Yeah. It's a problem for whoever he's against. It's a problem.
Yo, okay. Last little comic piece I'm going to introduce. I've been reading the current run of X-Men. And there's a fight that happens, and Cliff Notes version, like Magneto's fighting like somebody like on the Thanos level, and the man
Thanos' his brother, I believe.
Yeah, like his brother. He rips Magneto's heart out, but Magneto don't die because he is pumping his own blood through his body because of all the iron in his blood. Like this man literally got his heart ripped out and stayed alive just long enough to get his lick back.
Wow.
That's the type of like that type of character, like, yo. So that like whenever I see him in the animated series, it's like, hey, they're gonna give us the kid version, but I know what he's really about.
Yeah, I love that because that was one of the best moments I've ever read. This man had a hole in his chest. It just had his power circulating his blood. Dying just long enough to like, nah, I'm gonna get your ass. I'm gonna get your ass, and I'm gonna save these mutants, and then I'm gonna die. Man, it's a beat.
That's like I love that because I'm like he makes you smarter, like even in the sense of because that happens, and then you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, we do have iron in our blood, and you think of like magnetism and things like that. It's like, oh yeah, he could like do stuff with the ground as well because there's like iron and minerals and essentially metallic things in the ground, and you're you become like a science major.
It's interesting, Nels, you said like he's consistent through all mediums. It's like the writing for Magneto is always done very well, no matter like what, like, and it's always done very carefully. It's like he's a threat, but he's not necessarily a like traditional villain, right? He's definitely a threat, but it's not like he's like mustache twirling. It's like, and we always writing him in a way where like, well, I get what he's talking about. I may not agree, but like I understand how we got here, and like it's funny how that's always consistent with all Magneto throughout every medium.
Well, I will say in the early like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, he was kind of a mustache twirling villain, but that sucker ended quick. Like once they continue to evolve Magneto, you really got to see, like Shannon, what you were saying, the MLK Malcolm X dynamic, and you were seeing like, dang. Like, even if you were to look on, like, the Wikipedia, they don't list Magneto as a villain. Like, he is considered a neutral character. Because, like, granted, in the anime intro, it is X versus Magneto. But they don't consider him a villain because, like, the brother was right. So. He's considered a hero to all mutants. So, anyways.
One of my favorite Magneto moments is in a terrible movie, but in X3. When the professor dies and the little pyro dude is like, I would have killed the professor for you if you had asked me. And Magneto stops him. He's like, Charles Xavier has done more for mutant kind than you'll ever know, or something like that. And I love that moment because he's like, yo, we were at odds and maybe I would have had to kill him. But like, no, you're going to respect that dude. Like, it's like, what is it in Gangs of New York when Bill the Butcher puts Leonardo DiCaprio's dad's photo on the ledge because he's like, this is my enemy, but like I respect him, and like I love that moment. But from the TV show, two y'all, like everything y'all said is probably like my favorite moments, but two moments that stood out to me as a kid. One of them, I don't know why, but the episode with Storm's son where she goes to Africa and he's got like the Jordan jersey on and he's really fast. And like, I don't know, it's like the Shadow Man or something. And he steals Storm's soul or something, and he runs in the Shadow Realm at the end. I don't know, but like something about that episode, I like never forgot that episode as a kid. It just stuck with me. And then I was like, oh, it starts like, he's my son. And then she's like, goodbye, back to America. And I was like, oh. I was like, dang, all right.
I got a life to live.
I got a whole thing back in America, son.
You be all right.
You fast. You got a Jordan jersey. Hey, you doing us better.
You got more than I started with. You be all right.
You'll be just fine. And if you ever make it to America, you're like, but
come to death row.
Yeah, right. But and then like as a kid, this is how I knew I was watching like a big time show. Do y'all remember at the end of this Phoenix Saga? And I don't know, Jean sacrificed herself or she stayed in space. I don't know. And everyone's all sad. They're looking at the ocean. Beast gives some like poetry. He like says some poetry. And he's like, it's as hard as the flames of hell. And I was like, they said hell in a cartoon. Like, I remember like, boom, mind blown. I was like, how could you do that? How did they get away with that? Like, I remember I was like, what am I watching here? Like, this is, you know, when you're a kid and you're like, I shouldn't be watching this. This isn't for me. Like, I need to run away. Like, I was just blown away. Like, how did you say hell in a cartoon? Like,
yeah, Beast dropped some lines, man. All right, y'all, to wrap it up, I am curious on what you all consider the legacy of this show. Obviously, the show, I mean, we've been talking for a minute. The show clearly meant a lot to a lot of us, and I can imagine for all the members in the pop cult, if you listen to Pop Cult Parent, you watch the X-Men show. And if you haven't, you're probably going to after this episode. So like this show meant a lot to a generation.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you all think the legacy of the show was. So who would like to?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. I'll wrap it up real quick. Like, this was my introduction to the X-Men. I knew of X-Men. I don't know like how I knew, but I knew of them. But this got me into the X-Men as an IP, and I think it did for a lot of people. And then this show is such a legacy that it just kept going. One of my favorite games of all time, Marvel vs. Capcom. Those and in the X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Those designs are from this show. They're like they just took these designs and put them in that game. And it's the same voice actors because they knew like this is gold, don't touch it, just you know what I'm saying? So people love this. They, you know, people when the movies came out, they're like, yo, where's the blue and yellow, you know? And I think there's a reason why 20 years later, I don't know, that this show is coming back. It's one of the greatest TV shows of all time. It may, I don't know if it's even cartoons, let's say it's maybe top 10. TV shows, 15, 20, but it's up there. It's well made, and it ages like fine wine. Like it like doesn't miss a beat. Like this stuff is just good. The only thing that dates it is like the 90s kind of aesthetic. But even that, it's just a time capsule. It's a period piece. Well, no, it's a period piece now. It's not even like nostalgia. It's just a period piece of a story that takes place in the 90s. And it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Yeah, legacy-wise, similar to Mark, this was basically my introduction to the X-Men. And so this was my introduction. Pretty much everything I know about the X-Men has come from watching this cartoon. And then even when the movies came out, I'm using this cartoon to be like, that ain't right. That ain't right. You know, like, even though the whole world of comics
is the standard.
Yeah.
Definition.
Exactly.
2000 Shannon with his checklist. He's like,
yeah. Like, that ain't how you do Rogue. No, that ain't how you do. And so I'll say, with that, when I look back to, you know, the especially the superhero action, you know, cartoons and things that I grew up on, I mean, it is definitely X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, you know, maybe a couple more, but it's definitely like X-Men is that foundation. And even with that, to me, it drives all of this. And now that we're in this realm of, you know, redoing the MCU and doing all these different things, it even has me thinking of again, some of the Hollywood stuff, legacy wise, where I'm like, oh, like now they can probably now do a proper Rogue because, they could never do Captain Marvel before. So now maybe they can do a proper Rogue as opposed to, what we saw in the early 2000s, late 90s, whenever that was. So just little things like that you're like, oh, we couldn't get these characters the way that they were in, say, that cartoon because of all this other stuff. Because, like I said, you can't have Rogue without mentioning Captain Marvel. You can't, or Carol Danvers in general. You can't have some of the stuff like a proper, some of these proper characters and all of this without mentioning and introducing these others. So for me, it's that legacy while also, I guess, future as well, whereas sort of lays the groundwork for that.
Yeah, I would say so. One, this cartoon means the world to me, and I still watch it all the time. Like, I'm in my 40s and I watch it consistently. But I think if I'm thinking about like the impact of it, I think it gave me a really good example of like just like what quality like entertainment and television like should look like. So the thing I think about as a great example is like I think about season 2 of the series. So this is the season where like Professor X is like missing for half of the time. And then there's the big showdown in the Savage Land where like the X-Men, everybody got to go squad up and save him and Magneto and stuff, right? But if you go all the way back to the very beginning of the season, like so the way like all the episodes are going, like it starts off with like, there's this wedding that happens. And then, oh, by the way, Professor X went to Antarctica. Oh, he's gone. And like, he's missing. Nobody knows what's going on with him. So then every single episode, you're getting all these different stories, but then like for maybe if the episode is 20 minutes, maybe for 5 minutes in each episode, there's the story of Professor X and Magneto and like everything that they're going on in the Savage Land. If you just watch just that story by itself, it's compelling and it's like it gets you invested in the characters. So like it's as a child, like it's the first time like I'm understanding like, yo, multiple plots are happening at the same time and they're all starting to converge. And so like that is, it's like Game of Thrones, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how I understand this sort of stuff. And so just as like like now kind of like looking back, it's like, yo, I was introduced to like quality entertainment at an early age. And cause I can now when I watch TV and I don't see entertainment, I have something to reference it to. So like, I think like just the impact of it, like it was really well done and like well thought out. And like, you don't get that every day right now.
Nope. Funny enough, Mike, the Iron Man cartoon did a similar thing. Straight up stole it. You would just see the Mandarin at the end of each episode slowly collect his rings back, episode after episode. Yeah. So, you know how for most folks, they are comic book heads, and because their love of comic books has them love these TV shows and then the movies? That was not my story. I started, like, my love for superheroes started from Batman, this show, and Spider-Man. This is what launched my love for superheroes and had me start reading comic books. If it wasn't for X-Men, I wouldn't have become a comic book head. Like, this was the launch of my love for superheroes. So this show means a whole lot to me, and it is one of the best shows out there. And like, honest to goodness, like, I'm sure I'm not alone. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who fell in love with superheroes because of this cartoon and started reading comic books because of this cartoon. And yeah, I think that's just the power of this show. And yeah, it's quality. That's why we're getting the 6th season, because it was that good. So there's that. And the other thing I'll say, I have an idea of what the 6th season is going to be. If you all remember the last episode, which was amazing, even though the animation, the budget changed and it didn't look as good as it did.
That animation budget is woo.
Animation it got rough. It got rough. But the story was still dope. So if y'all don't remember, Magneto was about to start the mutant revolution, the day he has been dreaming for his entire life. And then Jean, Wolverine, and Cyclops come in and is like, if Xavier has ever been your man, you have the power to save his life. And he's like, yo, on the day that I'm going to finally lead the mutant revolution, you're saying I have to choose between the revolution and saving my worst enemy / best friend's life? damn you, Professor X. Damn you. And I think the line that like got him, like Cyclops was like, he would do it for you. And he was just like, damn, because you all know Professor X would stop everything to save Magneto's life.
Yeah.
Which is wild. So anyways, this is what I think is going to happen. It's based off of Grant Morrison's run of X-Men. Mike, have you read this?
Oh,
Grant Morrison's run? Of course you have.
Of course.
Yeah, he's a
Grant Morrison does Grant Morrison is a legendary, he's considered one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. He wrote a run of X-Men. He's also ridiculous. He's a psychopath, but he wrote a run of X-Men. And one of the big stories is Professor X, after like reestablishing like the school, he gets really sick, really bad, and then goes to, what's her name? Lilandra and the Shi'ar Empire. But then he comes back and he's off. Like something happens up there and he's off and he's back and he's like a super villain. And you don't find out until later, but he's like possessed by his evil twin sister named Cassandra Nova, who is a diabolical telepath who's as strong and ridiculous as Professor X, but she's evil. So just imagine Professor X being evil, but you don't really find out till later. If that's the story that I think they'll do, which I'm not sure they'll do, but it's like the way the episode ends, that is the straight up lead up to the start of the Cassandra Nova story. If that's what they do, buckle up, folks. Buckle up. That is going to be a fun ride. I'm sure whatever we have is going to be great, but if that's what we get, it's going to be a fun ride.
Since you throwing theories out, I just want to throw one out there too. And I think the MCU has been giving us a lot of hints at this. I think it's no secret that they're going to eventually bring X-Men into the MCU. And I think X-Men 97 are going to be that X-Men that come into the MCU. Here's a couple of reasons why. The whole Hugh Jackman Wolverine suit thing in Deadpool 3. And if y'all saw the Deadpool trailer, the TVA is involved. I think we're going to have a lot of universal shifting. I think we're going to do some time stuff. But I don't know, have y'all seen the end of the Marvels? I just watched the post-credit scene. I didn't even watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And where Monica wakes up and she's with the X-Men.
Yep, she's with
okay,
Beast. Yep.
That Beast looks like Beast from this show. Just like his design, like even how his teeth are, he looks like the Beast from this animated series. So I think that's where we're going. I think the X-Men from this animated series are going to be the X-Men that are in the MCU moving forward.
I love both of those theories. I'm like, yeah, I don't know which one. It's mentioning that I was like, yeah, I saw the Marvels and I'm just like, that would be dope if they do that. Because I mean, yeah, I feel like that's the way they're gonna have to put them in there. It's gonna be some type of because of an interdimensional thing, and maybe we're acknowledging when we're in a different.
Because it's Kelsey Grammer, right? It's him.
Was
he don't look
Grammer?
like. I'm pretty sure it was him, but it don't look like him from X3. He looks like Beast from this cartoon, just the way his hair is, his teeth is. So like that's my theory.
So there's two things that's making me come to where I think it's going to go. So the last episode, it was graduation day. So when Professor S is leaving and Magneto's with the team and stuff, right? At the very top of that episode, they were voting on a mutant containment act. Like that was the backdrop for all of it. And then they do the thing. He pressed that button. Now Professor X does all this sort of stuff. And then they just go all to the mutant stuff. They never came back to what's happening with that mutant containment act.
God Love Man Kills?
Huh?
God Love Man Kills?
Close. So the other thing that's going on is like Bishop is in the mix. You only see Bishop in the mix when it's some time travel stuff. So like there's going to be something that's around this containment act and something around time travel. And then the very last Easter egg that I noticed in there, if you look at the trailer, you notice Jean is pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
So, those three things together, like there's something in the mix there. There's something in the mix. So I can't say for sure I know exactly how it's going to happen, but in the comic books, Scott and Jean actually have a kid, and they have a daughter named Rachel Summers. Yeah. And like she's from, so it's kind of similar to one of those other plots when Days of Future Past. All the mutants get like rounded up, and then Rachel, their daughter, is what they call like a hound. She goes to track these people down. If Bishop is in the mix, that means there's some time travel stuff that act like they're about to try to contain all the mutants, like all of that. Like
It's
I'm
about
looking
to
for
go
those
down.
things. Yeah,
Mike, I think you're right. Mike,
Can I
I think
ask
you're
the
right. It's
experts
about to
something?
go down.
Since I got the experts here, can I ask y'all something? How do y'all think they're going to introduce mutants as a concept to the MCU? Because I have a wild guess theory. I don't think Wanda's dead. I think she's still alive, and I think it's going to be this. I think they're going to do it like a house. What is it? A House of X, but like a reverse kind of thing. And like somehow Wanda creates mutants, but like I would just because this is clearly a universe where mutants isn't a thing. So like, how do y'all think they're going to bring them into the MCU?
House of
yeah,
M. You meant House of M. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, House of M. Yeah.
yeah. I think Scarlet Witch is probably one of the easiest routes for that to happen. Yeah, she one of the easiest routes to happen. But like they keep hinting at it enough to say like mutants kind of exist now. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got
The
Quicksilver and Wanda, but like they never used the M word, and that was a lot of like legal stuff they couldn't.
until the
Miss
end
Marvel.
of Miss Marvel.
Until the
Yeah.
end of Miss Marvel, then they
Yeah.
use the term mutant. And Namor calls himself a mutant.
He does,
in
yeah,
Wakanda
yeah.
Forever. So it's starting to come around. But I honestly, like, the easiest way would be, or the smartest way, I should say, would be what you just described. Like, I actually thought the end of WandaVision was going to be like she expands her, like, whatever her powers are
Power.
called,
Yeah,
across the world, and she does
Mhm.
House of M, reverse House of M. That would have been the best way to end WandaVision. No shade, Disney, but it is what it is. I guess they weren't ready to do the mutants world, but like expand the rest of the world, do a reverse House of M, and instead of, what did she say at the end of House of M? No more mutants. She says everyone's a mutant or something like that, or we'll have mutants. It would have been delicious. Anyways, I think what will happen is an alternate universe.
Yeah.
I do not foresee them being like, the mutants as a people have such a rich history that it's hard for me to think that like they just been around and not doing nothing or saying nothing. Like, I don't think they could pull that off. So I think they're going to have to go with the alternate universe and then doing like incursion type of thing. And then all these different universes become one universe, like at the end of one of the Jonathan Hickman like stories, and what's it called? A New World. I forgot all that stuff, but like Secret Wars, like at the end of Secret Wars, all the worlds coming together in this one world. And that's how you get the mutants and Fantastic Four and the current MCU all in the same planet, but it won't happen until after Secret Wars. So I think it's going to have to be an alternate universe.
Yeah, my hope too is that, like I said, they just put mutants in there. Like, go ahead, give us like Beast, I don't know, a Beast, Wolverine, whomever, like as they are now, instead of waiting, because something that was coming to mind too. And I'm trying to think like if this isn't too inhuman, like in terms of Inhumans, because we don't really want to go that way. But it's like, to be a mutant, like you have the X gene. So I'm like, if they wanted to play the long game, they could be like, oh, the X gene has always been around. And then just like now, because of who knows, Wanda, something happened that now has activated the X gene. And so now we start getting mutants, even though it's like they technically have always been around, the gene just wasn't activated.
Yeah. Hey,
But I feel like that would be such a long game, and I'm like, I don't really want that. Just give them to us now.
Speaking on something like that, I'm sorry, I know we're trying to wrap up, but I got the experts here, so I can't pass up on this. But like, can y'all explain to me, like in a world like Marvel, the comics, whatever, how come there's a world where like that person's a mutant, get that dirty mutant, and then they're like, hi, Spider-Man. Like, hi, Fantastic. You know what I'm saying? So like, what makes someone a mutant and allows them to be discriminated against in the Marvel world?
You want to go? You want me to go?
You want to go?
Okay, I'll go. You clean it up. All right. So the definition of a metahuman versus like a mutant is that something happens to a human and they get powers. Whether it's a freak accident, chemicals, all that in the third, that is like how Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four and the Incredible Hulk like have their powers.
Mhm.
Like something happened to a human and now they have powers. It's not a thing that just happens. So
Yeah.
humans do not feel threatened that they are going to be replaced by metahumans. It's they're humans that a thing happened to. Mutants are the future of, they're the next level of evolution. So humans feel threatened by mutants because they feel like they're going to be replaced by them. So it's like, imagine you are seeing a superior race of people like just slowly start to populate the world, and you are like all of a sudden feel like you are inadequate, and you are seeing your inadequacy up close and personal every time you see a mutant, and they're the others. And so you're like, no, I'm not ready to consider myself to be inadequate. Let's kill them, get rid of everyone with the X gene, because like they represent change and difference. And I don't want to feel less than. So let's get rid of all of them. They're monsters, instead of seeing them as like the next step in the nature of humans.
Gotcha.
Now, to like kind of like further complicate it, but also make it simpler and easier, Mr. Fantastic, Susan Storm, they're metahumans. They were humans that got powers, but their kid, Franklin Richards, was born with powers. He's actually considered a mutant because he was born with mutant
abilities.
Powers. Yes, with abilities.
Okay.
So that's like, just to kind of
Two metas make a
explain
mutant.
a little
All
bit.
right.
Not all the time, because they have a daughter. She's a regular human. She's smart
Yeah.
as hell, but she's a regular human. So it doesn't necessarily mean two meta humans come together, they make a mutant.
Gotcha.
Just so happens that the one that they did, he was born with an X gene,
Mhm.
and he is probably the strongest mutant in the history of the world. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Bet. Thank
Mike,
you.
how would you you want to clean that up?
No, I was gonna say you said it well in the comic books that humans are Homo sapiens and the designation for mutants are Homo superior. So they always talk about like the fact that like they're trying to get them to coexist, but if you just if you're describing them like that, like it's the same thing that happened with like when Homo sapiens came up, and then like there was still like the Neanderthals. Eventually,
Yeah.
Homo sapiens made sure there was no more Neanderthals.
I just love that. It's like, look, we're just like you. We're just the same, but call us Homo superior.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. But we are just people like the rest of y'all.
Take away my ability to fly, see through walls, run faster than the speed of light, just like you. Put my pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah, I can read your mind. I can
Yeah.
control your thoughts. I can make you do things that you did not intend to do just with thinking. But besides that fact, I'm human just like you.
You know what they should have did? They're like, we're not a threat, Gene. Pour that man a cup of coffee. Like they're like, oh,
You see?
Yeah.
no, mutants are not a problem at all, Senator. We got nothing to worry about.
Oh, man. All right, y'all. Anything else before we wrap up?
Nah, man. Yo, this was great. Mike, thank you for being here, dude. This was awesome.
Absolutely.
No, thank you for inviting me. This was a great time, man. This was a great time.
Anytime we have anything X-Men related, Mike, please know you have a standing invitation.
Call me up. I'm always ready.
Well, thank you, sir. And thank you, Pop Cult. Thank you for listening. You can find us on all social media at Pop Cult Parent, POPCULT, PARENT. You can visit us at www.popcultparent.com. Email us at popcultparent@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate us, review, and subscribe. And as always, join the cult. Peace.
More.
We out.